I want to talk to you all about the way that music theory was used to foreshadow a major twist in season 2 of Severance, and how it may be foreshadowing even more big twists that have not happened yet. I was first introduced to this theory by an incredible post from Reddit user Lonelylands, but I'm actually going to combine it with some information from a blog post credited to Yistvan to form a broader theory that I think can serve as a guide for the rules of the show. Now, without further ado, let's get into it. And again, huge spoiler warning, because we are going to be talking about events that have occurred in the show Severance. So, the theory is Innies and Outies are represented in the soundtrack using two different sets of notes. Natural notes correspond to the actions of Outies, and sharp and flat notes correspond to the actions of Innies in the sound design. There are two signs of Innies and Outies transitioning between each other: a tritone interval or a rise or descent, depending on the type of transition. Now let's talk about some background info. This theory pertains in particular to the musical notes we hear when the elevator is used in Severance. When the characters descend, we first hear the note G natural, and then we hear the note C sharp every single time. Then we hear a G natural when the overtime contingency was called, and the Innies appeared in the outside world, but not a C sharp. Additionally, elevator activity where Severance doesn't occur, or when overheard on the Severance floor, appears to be a B flat. But then there's a singular exception, a B natural, which we have heard twice. During Helly's attempt at, dying in season 1, and when Helly emerged from the elevator in season 2. It's worth mentioning that the notes rise and fall in accordance with the real elevator that they are taking. Going from Innie to Outie is a literal ascending interval, and going from Outie to Innie is a literal descending interval. The notes also only appear to indicate the use of the elevator. We specifically did not hear the notes in season 1 when Helly used the stairwell, but once she emerged from the elevator, we heard the notes. We should also talk about the theme of the show. The first 3 notes of Severance's opening theme's melody are B natural, B flat, and G natural. A C sharp appears once and only once in the melody during the entire opening theme, since it's not in the same key as the rest of the piece. It's non-diegetic to the key. The theme is constructed around 4 chords: C minor, F sharp major, F major, and A flat minor. The key thing to note here is that the chord progression features 2 tritone shifts and 2 non-natural roots. And lastly, here's, in my opinion, the final piece of the puzzle. When Mark goes through reintegration, you can see the salt vibration pattern switches between 2 patterns, and these patterns match the frequency of the 2 elevator notes we hear, C sharp and G natural. Now, for some music theory analysis, these notes are very deliberate choices by the sound designers. Every Innie has exclusively been shown in conjunction with natural notes. This is a signal to us that Lumen does not consider Innies natural, right? The creators of the show are saying these characters and their corresponding music is unnatural, but it's doing it through music, which I think is genius. The interval between G and C sharp is known as a tritone. This interval is extremely dissonant, as it is the largest possible distance between any 2 notes. What effect does this have on us? It's disarming, it's ominous. We are made uncomfortable and dissatisfied by hearing the 2 notes sequentially. There is no resolution in this pattern. The choice of B and B flat are also fascinating because the interval between these 2 notes is a minor second, one of the most dissonant intervals in music next to the tritone because it's the closest that two notes can possibly be. And for some context to those who aren't familiar with music theory, the Jaws theme is a theme that plays with the interval of the minor second. If the show's score had been like obvious and if it relied on dramatic cues to tell us something was wrong, we would have seen all these twists coming. Instead, the music works at a subconscious level, planting unease in the viewer's mind without revealing the truth outright. This is the power of minimalism in sound design. When one note carries meaning, even the smallest variation can unravel a secret. So now that we've established the theory and the evidence of the theory, let's apply it. As the Reddit user pointed out earlier, Helly R's note in season 2 has been different from everyone else. When Helly descended from the elevator, we do not hear the G natural used to indicate the Outie transition, or a B flat from Mark's perspective to indicate that the Innie is arriving. Instead, we hear a B natural indicating that something else has occurred. Helly's pitch is different from what we'd expect because she isn't just any severed worker. And as the theory predicted, and the show is now confirmed, Helly is actually Helena Egan. Well, now that Helly is proven to be Helena, and that theory was proven to be true, let's try applying this extrapolation of the theory that natural notes correspond to Outies and that non-natural notes correspond to Innies. Let's apply this theory to some other characters. I think that one thing we can say conclusively is that Miss Casey is definitely not Gemma. When we saw Miss Casey take the elevator at the end of season 1, we heard a B flat, which, as we've established, seems to indicate that an Innie is using the elevator. This means that whatever Miss Casey is, she seems to be quote unquote not natural, in a literal sense. Another thing that we can apply the theory to is in the most recent episode of Severance at the time of this recording, Woe's Hollow is a real place outside of Lumen. I saw a lot of people theorizing online that Woe's Hollow may be a simulation of some sort, but the musical cue when Irving's Innie regains consciousness is identical to the one we heard in the previous overtime contingencies. A G natural to indicate the Outie ascended from the elevator, and no C sharp to accompany it. So the Outies did not descend in the elevator prior to emerging in Woe's Hollow. I feel like this raises more questions than it answers, specifically regarding how and why the Outies went to Woe's Hollow. Now, here's a little theory crafting on my part. We've seen that Outies are represented with natural tones, and Innies are represented with non-natural tonalities. I think that reintegration may be demonstrated to us using microtonality. Microtonality is the phenomenon in music theory where notes occur outside of the most commonly accepted 12-tone equal temperament Western philosophy. Notes that are not natural or flats, sharps, this would be the perfect way to indicate that the character has both their Innie and Outie experiences. Here's a question though. What if we applied the logic of natural/non-natural frequencies to other sounds we hear in the show? If we do that, then we can make a couple of big extrapolations. One is that Harmony Cobell is probably an Outie. When she is confronted by Mark's Outie in season 2, episode 2, and she honks her horn and tries to run him off the road, we hear distinctly that her horn is tuned to a G natural, which we've now established corresponds to Outies. Now here's a big one, and my final one that might be a bit of a stretch. I believe Rickon is an Innie. Let's dissect the scene where Rickon is trying to brush off Gemma and Mark's decision about what Innie Mark meant by "she's alive." As he uncorks the wine bottle, it plays a perfect F sharp, a sound that we haven't heard before. And it sounds very similar to the elevator bell, but again, it's a half step off. What does this mean? I think it means Rickon is an innie. So, the Severance elevator note might seem like a small detail, but it's a perfect example of how a sound design and music theory shape storytelling. The show's composers didn't just create a chilling score, they embedded hidden clues in single notes. So next time you hear that eerie elevator time, listen closely. In Severance, even the smallest sound can betray the biggest secrets. That's all for today, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed the video. And tune in next week for some more music theory. All right, bye-bye.